Monday, about 1:10, start of a new week. Still the start of a new month. It's October. Um, Today's the 2nd of October, 2023. Um, and as per description in the title, um, and some questions from, um, been having a discussion with Burpees Bandit on diet. And I've talked quite a bit about diet. I've talked quite a bit of diet with um, Barefoot Burpees and Burpee Bandit, sorry, had a few questions. And he had asked me about maybe doing a video. Um, you see quite a few people on YouTube do their my daily diet, what I eat in a day, or even taking it down to a meal. And Max did something a while ago, and I've seen other people. Um, I think Lee Hazard did something just a few days ago. And, this is what I eat. I am not technically capable mentally or physically to be able to do such a thing. So it's just going to be a talk. I'm going to talk about what I eat through the course of the day, why I eat the way I do. Um, is it viable for everyone? I'll try to answer questions that I think of that most people have asked me through the years. I'll also address why I switched. So let's start with that. As I've been a vegan for, I think it's been just 2023, right? At least 13 years, I think. Um, I actually switched my diet right when I started doing ultra marathons, not specifically for that purpose. Um, I ran my very first 50 miler as a vegan, almost as a fruitarian. I had, um, when I became vegan, I started out as a fruitarian. I had been a vegetarian for years before, very, very rarely having some type of meat in my diet. But I mainly relied on fish, some eggs for my protein, and then the rest was largely vegetarian. Before that, I was an avowed meat eater. I was very much um, consuming a lot of meat, a lot of bodybuilding supplements, whey protein, um, all the other Met-Rex bars, if you guys remember. I don't know. I don't do a whole lot of supplements any longer. Maybe we'll talk more about that. But I don't know if Met-Rex is still around. Uh, Good stuff at the time. It's considered groundbreaking having that complete meal replacement back in the day. And adding that into my diet back in my heavy lifting days was invaluable. However, who knows? Maybe they came out with a plant-based version by now. Everything is heading somewhat in that direction just because it's a viable market. Maybe not for any ethical reasons, but heck, if you can make money off of it, you know, switching to plant-based, it certainly it's been working, I guess, for Burger King and other places that have offered the Impossible Burger or Beyond Meat Burger as well. So I had known for a long time. Um, Growing up, I did not care for a whole lot of vegetables. I ate a ton of meat. You could say I was a meat and potato guy, but you could hold the potato. I was a meat eating guy. And, I'd have a salad. I did eat fruit, some apples, some oranges. That was about it. It's not a good diet, but it did help get me big. Another reason why I took a lot of supplements. However, even then, even in my heavy meat eating days, I knew eventually I was going to have to switch something. Not just for health reasons, but I spent some time in my mid-teens, maybe 15, 16. I worked at a veal farm with some family members who owned it for a period of time, short period of time. And I grew up in a hunting family. My father had stopped hunting. He came home from World War II. No desire to hunt whatsoever. Just had completely left him. He was in the Navy. He was on a mine sweep in the South Pacific. He did not see heavy action. Of course, if you're on a minesweep in the South Pacific, every day has that tension, what you're going to find, what's going to happen. And it was at the tail end of the war in the South Pacific when, um, the Japanese were very much committed to knowing they were losing, knowing they were going to lose, take out as many people as possible. So there was a lot of tension. For whatever reason, when he came home from a family in rural Pennsylvania where everybody hunted, schools were closed, and they still closed for 2 weeks every year for deer hunting season. You have extended weekends for small game season, opening day for fishing season, stuff like that. The whole community, it's a small county, northern Pennsylvania, north central Pennsylvania, beautiful area. I was happy to go up and live there with some relatives in my teens because I wanted to be in that type of community. I wanted to be in a hunting community. I quickly realized I did not want to hunt. Much like my father, I did not want to continue working on a mule farm, and I had to push that stuff aside in order to continue eating as I did. Seeing that suffering up close, knowing about it. A few years after that, I had read John Robbins, his book, Diet for New America, and it had a profound impact on me, and yet I still hadn't made the switch even to vegetarian. But seeing how animals are treated, once you do, you can't force it out of your mind or your soul for too much longer. Eventually, you're going to either have to change your diet, or you're going to have to um, make amends that you're fine with how animals are treated. And it's horrible. As Paul McCartney said, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, we would all be vegetarians. Here's what got me to switch. It wasn't the fact that I had hunted in my teens. It wasn't the fact that I had worked in a veal farm for a while, that I had fished all through my youth. All that weighed heavily. And then the book, Diet for New America. As my meditation practice started deepening, even just a little bit, as I started practicing meditation, my diet naturally started becoming more vegetarian. In the very early 90s, I remember I went out with a couple friends, and I said, we had dinner, we went to a steakhouse, this is going to be my last steak ever. And of course, I didn't believe it, but it was. And I just started switching to mostly fish. I still had a lot of dairy products to make up for the protein. I was still lifting heavy. But my diet just naturally started to change. For whatever reason, and I guess it was about 2000, I'd stayed vegetarian for quite some time, still heavily relying on dairy. But a couple of things happened. One, health-wise, my father, as he was getting older and I was his caregiver, had kidney disease. He held it steady for 20 years, amazingly so, and it never worsened. But his doctor made an offhand comment to me that pretty much everyone in Western society will get kidney disease of some varying degree because of the overconsumption of animal protein. He actually just said protein, but I don't think he even realized that there was other ways of getting protein. So I added in the animal protein. Pretty much everyone. And I thought, here I would, I've been pounding 200 grams of protein a day, every day, to put on size, to keep my strength up, to get stronger. And that was certainly more than my father had ever taken in. So I was a prime candidate for kidney disease. Unless I did something, and I was hoping it wasn't too late. So I started switching my diet then. I remember getting my cholesterol checked, and the doctor saying, your cholesterol is high, She didn't actually tell me how much it was. She said it's high, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to wait until you need medication. Don't make any changes. Don't do anything different. Don't eat. Don't change your diet. Just wait. Eventually, you will need medication, and we'll give it to you. And that got me thinking, how weird the medical establishment is, that they're not going to offer me any dietary changes. And remember, I was a vegetarian, but I was still, or I'm sorry, yeah, I was a vegetarian, but I was still relying heavily on dairy, eating a lot of fish, occasionally sneaking in some chicken, not often, but occasionally, some chicken, some turkey. And I thought, so my cholesterol's high. Eventually I'll need medication, but you don't want me to do anything about it until I need medication. And then I really started thinking about making those changes to my diet. As well, I saw a photo of a farmer kicking a cow in its face. The cow was on the ground, the farmer was trying to get it up, and he was kicking the cow. And I like cows. I like all animals. I love all animals. It had bothered me that I had these past sins against them, and I was doing nothing about it. All these things were weighing heavily upon me, and I saw that photo, and it just broke my heart. And if you've ever looked a cow in the face, you can see what a soulful animal they are. So I decided I'm done. I need to remove myself from this cycle of cruelty. And I did. I made the change. Again, all of this started happening, all these changes from meat eater to vegetarian to vegan occurred as I was meditating and deepening my meditation all through those years, to the point where I could just say, I'm done, and then be done. It was that easy. Not that there wasn't some growing pains. What does somebody do when they don't care for a whole lot of fruits and vegetables, or a whole lot of vegetables, but they want to be a vegan? So I did some research, and I saw 30 Bananas a Day website forum, basically being a fruitarian. And I had a Facebook friend, Mike Arnstein, who was winning 100-mile ultras in his 40s, extremely fast. He did 100 miles at a 24-hour race where I believe he averaged a 740 mile nonstop over and over and over again. In his 40s, he ran, I believe it was a 12-hour 100-miler. Crazy. All as a fruitarian. One race, all he ate was dates. Another race, all he'd had was oranges, from orange juice to eating whole oranges. And I was just getting into ultra running. I made the switch. I was a fruitarian. Not the fruitarian, that's Mike Arnstein. He is still called the fruitarian. And I would eat a ton of bananas. I don't think I ever made it to 30 a day, but I would eat in the high 20s along with a bunch of other fruit. It is an expensive endeavor. And I lost some muscle. My energy was through the roof. I could run all day, and I was always hydrated. When I did my first 50-miler, it was in early June. The temperature got to the mid to high 90s. I think it reached as high of the 96 to 97 with extremely high humidity, and there was a 70% drop-off rate in that race. It was a North Face 50-miler, and I mean, it was difficult. It's 50 miles, and it was my first 50-miler. But I sailed through it without any trouble from the heat or the humidity, no dehydration, because eating all that fruit just kept me extremely hydrated. But I was a little concerned with losing the muscle that I had spent a lifetime putting on. Didn't need to be as big as I used to be. I didn't need to be as strong, but I'd like being all over fit. I didn't want to just look like an ultra runner. I wanted to look like an athlete. So I started making some changes, adding some stuff in my diet. moving away from the pure fruitarian diet to a just a whole foods plant-based vegan. For a while, I relied on some of the new vegan products coming out. Um, you can eat just as much junk food as a vegan as you could from a non-vegan. We live in the golden age of vegan junk food, where it actually tastes good. And I had done that for a while, but I needed to move into a healthier place overall. Something that allowed me to regain some muscle tone, keep my strength up, be able to keep running ultras. Eventually, I'm semi-retired from ultras, um, and then do the body weight stuff that I'm doing now. So again, I just started adding stuff in, and what I found was as I changed my diet, I was more open for eating things that at one time I had no desire to eat whatsoever, no appetite for, no, even just looking at it would, make me turn away. But now I was more open. So I started eating more things, experimenting with more things. My diet is very basic now. Still a lot of fruit, but a lot of vegetables, some whole grains. So before we go into the why am I a vegan, other than those reasons mentioned, some other things as well. Um, I'll just go through a typical day in my diet. I could just as easily say, I don't need to say typical. I really honestly eat pretty much the same thing every day. I started having some issues a while back, breathing wise. It was misdiagnosed. At one point, the doctor said that I had a progressive lung disorder that would just get worse, obviously, progressive. Turns out, after I was tested, after I went to a pulmonologist, the doctor said, you just have big lungs from being an endurance athlete, which was a relief, of course. But I spent a good bit of time being concerned about that, which caused some stress, some anxiety. And what it turns out it was, to begin with, was stress and anxiety, as well as having a issue with my jaw. I have a missing tooth up top years ago, and my dentist urged me, he said, don't do anything. No need right now. Your teeth are in good shape. You take excellent care of your teeth. I don't think this is ever going to cause you any trouble, and we can just leave it. Turns out it caused a lot of trouble. My jaw has shifted. It's probably some arthritis in it. There's a fair amount of pain. So with that, and then the anxiety from being a caregiver for my father during the COVID shutdown, it was just a lot, and it caused some issues. So I made some even more dietary changes, make it very strict. And I actually haven't changed it. Even as things are getting better, I just don't feel, everything feels very streamlined in order. It's a fairly inexpensive way of eating, and I'm happy. I enjoy every meal. I'm not a creative cook. Everything is, again, basically the same. I begin my day. I used to fast for 18 to 20 hours. Now, it's about anywhere between 14 and 16, closer to 14, somewhere right around there, always over 14. And I do my first early morning walk before I eat. I'm up every day just after 3 o'clock. Lately, it's been about 3:10, 3:15, and I get up, take care of bathroom needs, and I meditate. When I'm done meditating, I do my first yoga session. Then I make a cup of coffee, 1 cup a day. Although having discussions with Paul from Oregon, you know what? Even if you have a big ass cup of coffee, it's still 1 cup of coffee a day. But I haven't gone that route yet. It's probably about an 8 to 10 ounce cup of coffee. Strong coffee, instant coffee, usually organic because it tastes the best. I enjoy coffee. I used to drink it all through the day, started causing me some issues. So I brought it down to 1 so I can still enjoy it. I don't drink anything more than that. 1 cup. Then I take my first walk for the day. Fairly fast pace, but it's still dark. It's not yet 5 in the morning, and it's 2.5 miles or so. So, it's not super fast. I'm not running. I'm not out there even to think of it in terms of exercise, although it is. It's my time in nature, part of my time in nature, catching the things that are returning from a night's hunt to the things that are awakening as they step through the night. It's a magical window, and I get out there. I also want to catch that first hint of sun starting to come up and get that sunlight hitting the eyes as early as possible, even if it's not bright yet, because that sunlight is so valuable. I've talked about this quite a bit. When the sun hits your eyes, it has a magical alchemical reaction within the body. Your body starts producing the useful morning hormones, cortisol, epinephrine, a couple others. These are stress-related hormones, which we want at that time of the day. They help wake us up. They help prepare us for fight or flight, but not overly so. Not in that reactionary state, but in that I'm ready to begin my day. I'm ready to do stuff. Later on, those same hormones begin to die off as the day progresses, and in their waste material that they leave behind, the body produces from that waste material melatonin and serotonin, which are the relaxing hormones, the rest and relax hormones that help us go to sleep later in the night. And it all happens from that chain event of first morning light hitting the eyes. So another reason why I get out there so early. And when I come back, I also write every day before I head out for my walk. When I come back from my walk, I have my first meal of the day. And it is a lot of oatmeal. I actually don't know how much, but at least probably 200 calories worth of oatmeal. And in that, I have a tablespoon of flaxseed and flavor it with some cinnamon. I also put in anywhere from a teaspoon to a tablespoon of all natural preserves, either sometimes blueberry preserves, sometimes raspberry. This is where I get a little more diverse. I have different type of preserves in my morning oatmeal. Sometimes apricot if I get really fancy. And again, it's just enough to flavor it as well as offer a little more, fruit in my diet. I have 2 bananas chopped up in the oatmeal. And I have at least probably half a cup, if not more, frozen blueberries on top. Usually organic, sometimes the wild blueberries. It all depends. If I'm not making a lot of money for that particular month, it might not be organic blueberries, I'm sad to say. And blueberries are on that dirty dozen list of fruits and vegetables that aren't the cleanest, that might have the most pesticides on them. So it's always better, given that option, go organic. A lot of people are like, nutritional content is just the same organic to non-organic. True. But the pesticide level, the chemical makeup that's put on those fruits and vegetables is not equal. No matter how much you wash it, it's still going to be somewhat of a residue. So be careful. You can Google up the dirty dozen. And then I have an apple with that as well. So you can see it's, we got blueberries, we got 2 bananas, we got a little bit of preserves, and we have an apple. So right there, I've gotten just about 4 servings of fruit, not to mention my servings of whole grain. People have urged me to put in a scoop of plant-based protein. I don't count my protein. I spent a lifetime counting my protein and how much to get in. I get enough through what I eat. I do have a scoop of protein in my last meal for the day, but we'll get there. So, with that done, I have enough time to get some more work done as far as writing and keeping my blog up to date and stuff like that. My workout, you all see my workouts, what I do every single day. I do that. When I'm done working out, I usually have a piece of Ezekiel bread toast. If you're not familiar with Ezekiel bread, it's a live food. It is based on biblical quotes from the Bible. It has all kinds of whole grains. It has lentils. Um, it has barley. Very good bread. When you first have it, you probably won't like it. It doesn't taste like regular bread. But after, you adjust, it has that earthy quality to it. It's really good. Eat it by itself. I don't have to put anything on it. My brother will watch me make it, and how can you just eat plain old toast? Because I like it. Everything adjusts. Pre-vegetarian days, if I would try to eat that, it would be like choking down a block of sawdust. Now, it's amazing. I look forward to my post-workout toast day. I also have another banana. We're up to 3 bananas for the day. And I have another apple. We are up to 2 apples for the day. Not long after that, I go out for my second walk, which also includes some running. Not a whole lot. I have a streak, almost a year of running a minimum half mile every day, built into my walk. So I will walk 2+ miles along with that half mile of running. I used to run 2 or 3 miles through the week, have one big midday or midweek run, maybe 10 to 12 miles. And then I would spend the entire weekend running. When I was training for my first successful 100-mile race, I actually had a 97-mile weekend training run. 20+ miles, like 27 or 28 in the morning, and then another 26 or 27 in the evening. And then that was on a Saturday. And then the Sunday, I did the same thing to get me just shy of 100 miles. So I knew when I came up to that was my peak week. I knew when I had came to race day, I had already covered close to 100 miles in a 2-day period of time. I knew that my legs could keep going when they were tired, which is key for ultra running. I had no worries, and I finished my race after 3 failed attempts at 100 miles. I finally nailed it. If I were to go back to ultra running, I would probably go back to that. But I don't chase miles anymore. I'm happy just getting in 2 or 3 miles every day, 7 days a week, plus my 2+ in the morning. So I'm averaging 4 to 5 every day. But easy miles. Walk a lot. I enjoy walking. As a matter of fact, I had switched in my last few races as an ultra runner to power walking. I wasn't that much slower. Not for the really long stuff, where you might start out a race at 10-something pace for, a 50-mile or 100-miler. And by the end of the race, you're lucky if you're getting 17, 18, sometimes even 3 miles in an hour or less. So power walking did me a lot of good. Actually saved me some wear and tear, and I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed passing tired runners later in the race. But anyway, the point is, I just don't chase a whole lot of miles any longer. Maybe I will again. I say that I'm semi-retired. I leave the door open. Right now, it's not a passion of mine. So when I'm done my run and my walk, I have my second yoga session for the day, and it's a long one. It's anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes, depending on what I'm working on. And then I have my large meal a day. This is based on the yogic diet. where you have your um, largest meal of the day in the afternoon. Fairly large breakfast when you break your fast. Largest meal of the day, basically dinner at your lunchtime, at what is most people's lunchtime. And that meal, a few hours later, I have my last meal of the day. Um, my midday meal, again, it's basically always the same. It is either rice, sometimes barley, half a cup uncooked, which makes like a cup and a half or something cooked, along with half a cup of lentils, which makes for a cup plus fully cooked lentils. So I'm getting in probably 40 grams of protein just with those two. And I put that in my Instant Pot. It's usually cooking when I'm out on my walk and my run. When I'm done yoga, it's all ready. I steam some vegetables, usually kale, broccoli, and I have the rice and lentils over the steamed vegetables. That's it. And I have another apple. Or I'm sorry, I have another banana. So we're up to 4 bananas for the day. Banana is about 100 calories. So that's 400 calories right there. Another 100 in the apple, another 100 in 2 apples. So 600, not counting the probably 300 that's in my oatmeal, maybe even 4. So I'm already over 1,000 calories. Not mentioning the calories in the lentils and the rice and the sea vegetables. So I might be up to 1,500 calories right there. Not a super high calorie diet. I don't really count calories. It just is just off the top of my head. Same with protein. I don't count it, but off the top of my head, at that time, I've probably had, by mid-afternoon, I've probably had 50 to 60 grams of protein, maybe more. And then, like I said, I also have that banana with that, sort of as my dessert. And my one cheat thing for the day, a little, it's called a Belvita bar. It's like a breakfast bar, whole grains, low in sugar. Um, it's my one sort of nod towards, you know, something that's almost dessert-like. They're pretty good. I mainly have it to get in some extra calories. Make sure that my calories up. Plus, it does give me an extra serving of whole grains. It's not bad for you, but it's the one thing that keeps my diet from what I would consider to be 100% pure. It is vegan, of course. And then a few hours later, my last meal of the day, it's a green salad, some vegetables in it, whatever I have on hand, carrots, maybe a little extra broccoli, whatever, not picky, whatever's available I put in. And then I have a smoothie, 2 more bananas, which brings me to 7 bananas for the day. No, I'm sorry, 6 bananas for the day. And I put in a couple of dates to keep the calories up high. And I put in frozen strawberries to get another serving of fruits. Oh, as well in my lentils and rice, I have another tablespoon of flaxseed in there. And then I have, what else do I throw in there? Oh, I throw in a scoop of vegan plant-based protein, which is usually pea protein. Sometimes there's a few others. I don't do soy protein. I'm not against soy protein. Pea protein just seems to be more prevalent. Hey, Barefoot Burpee, how are you? Then I have another banana after that, and I have another piece of Ezekiel bread, and I'm done eating for the day. I don't eat anything after that. I'm usually done by 4:30 in the afternoon. According to yogic diet principles, you want at least 2 hours before. I'm smiling because I'm reading Barefoot Burpee's comment, which I'll get to in a minute. Yogic diet principle: stop eating at least 2 hours before you go to bed. So I follow that with excellent results. It's really helped me quite a bit. So Barefoot Burpee says you have to watch for estrogens. which is a concern for a lot of people with soy protein. I actually do throw in some tofu every once in a while. Um, I'm not overly concerned about it. And I have a ungodly amount of natural testosterone, as it's plain to see. And so I figure if estrogen enters my system, then the testosterone will automatically shut it down right at the gate. Both hands up. My good hormones pushing out all the bad stuff. Um, Barefoot Burpee says that I started taking DIM. There's lots of info, some conflicting, but meant to help balance hormones. I took that for a while too, and it was in a product that was supposed to naturally increase the production of growth hormone, and it was in there as well. It is supposed to help block negative estrogen in the diet. Buffett said, "Your tea is armed and dangerous." Exactly. Knows exactly what to do. So that's my diet. It's virtually the same every single day, except I might switch flavors. I might put something besides cinnamon in my morning oatmeal, but the basics are the same. Barefoot says he eats a lot of broccoli anyway. I thought I'd try it. Yeah, I eat a ton of broccoli as well. It's a staple in my diet, as well as kale, and they're related to each other. So supplements. I take a vegan creatine in the morning. I don't take it specifically before I work out. It doesn't give you that kind of energy. What it does is it increases your ability to store and hold ATP, which is then used during your workout. So technically, it's probably better to take it after you work out than before, because it will replenish what you've used up. But I take it before. I also take a sublingual B12. Not that I'm worried about being a vegan being deficient in B12, because what people have found, it's your ability to maintain B vitamins and to use it. And it's across the board, vegan, non-vegan. Some people just have trouble. I don't seem to be one of them, but it's better to be safe. So I take that. In the evening, I take a multivitamin, and I take vitamin D, and I take an allergy med. Oh, magnesium twice a day. And Triphala, which is a Ayurvedic, 3 traditional, ancient, 3 fruit and vegetable, or 3 vegetable, hence the tri and the Tridella. Really good for a lot of things. I take that. Adding in magnesium as a supplement has been very important. It actually has made a difference, especially in my sleep and the quality of sleep. Let's see. Barefoot says Tonkat, Holly definitely worked for me. I actually haven't heard of that. T-Boost. And I remember you saying, Barefoot says he takes 3 grams of creatine in the evening. I remember you saying that you take. That's about, that's how much I take as well. With the microcreatine, you don't need to take as much. You also don't need to load it the way you used to back in the day when it first came out. Barefoot says he does get mouth ulcers with low B12. Reverend Terminator is in the house some of the time. He says he's in the bushes. I hear and see what is written, but I can't interact. Appreciate you being here. Barefoot says he takes magnesium as well and water. I just take a capsule. Barefoot says, "Hey, Rev Bushmaster." So that's the diet. One of the questions that was asked about ethical vegan. Do I enjoy my diet, or am I a vegan just for ethical reasons? The answer is both. I enjoy my diet very much, and I enjoyed even more knowing that nothing had to suffer to get on my plate. I'm very mindful of that. I'm very grateful for that. I'm very thankful. And it makes a difference because when you eat, you are not just eating protein, carbohydrates. You are literally eating the fear hormones that were released, the stress hormones that were released when that animal was being tortured, when that animal was being slaughtered. And it's being tortured for a long period of time before it's slaughtered. Chickens nowadays are actually kept alive, debeaked, defeathered, hung from the talons, kept alive for days on end. It's just easier to store them that way. We're talking about live animals being stored. If that doesn't do something to your soul when you hear that, then everything needs to be reevaluated. Um, Pigs are being bred not to have actual feet. That way they can keep them in a crate. It's just not right. It's not right at all. We were, if we want to go back biblically, we were asked to be stewards of the earth. And a steward means you take care of what takes care of you. People like to argue with me saying, well, I'm a carnivore. Life consumes life. And I agree. However, you're not consuming life. You're consuming something that has been dead for a long period of time and that was tortured before it was slaughtered. If you want it to be life feeding life, you need to eat it as close to the source as possible. Meaning, if you want to eat meat, hunt or go to a local farmer, a local butcher that specializes in that. So, that was my vegan rant. This is why I'm ethical vegan. I mentioned the yogic diet. It's based on 3 principles: ahimsa, non-harming; sattva, which is a state of equanimity, purity. The better you eat, the more you start leading towards that state of equanimity and purity. Satya is a practice of purity and cleanliness. My diet is very clean. So, I think that covers everything, diet-wise. Barefoot says we're quite similar apart from the eggs. I have black seed oil and omega 3692. Yeah, I mentioned the flaxseed that I have every day, twice a day, tablespoon. And the honey. Barefoot says that he's Manuka honey, actually a New Zealand honey. I had that to help cure me of an issue. It's not vegan. So some people could argue, well, you lost your vegan power. You stepped off the mantle of veganism by introducing honey. I don't have it in my diet any longer, but I did use it to help me with an issue. Full disclosure. Barefoot says he also says chickens are looked after better there, which I've heard before, and I think we've talked about this before. Organic eggs, chickens are quite okay, but for the fact that they throw away meals, I think, yeah, maybe they don't do it where you are. If you get your again, if you go close to the source, small farms, again, I don't tell other people to become vegan. I recommend a plant-based diet, and by that means if you include meat, that's fine. But be careful where you get your meat from. Strive to live in that yogic dietary principle, non-harm as much as possible. It makes a difference across the world. Barefoot said he missed that. It was, I think the flaxseed. And he's talking about the honey, Manuka honey, meant to be good as an antibiotic. That's one of the reasons why I took it. I put it in my evening tea, which, by the way, I have a ginger turmeric tea. Um, so, um, yogic diet, how I eat, why I'm a vegan. And that's the thing I think that's important. The more clean you eat, the more clean you will want to eat. Just naturally flows that way. And again, I don't, I got a little preachy here, but I don't go around critiquing how other people eat. I care how you eat only in a sense that I care about the world, I care about your health, and I care the fact that for people to continue eating the way they do in the Western world means that there are people starving. They can't eat that way. We produce enough grains in just a few states that we could feed every hungry person in the world. But the vast majority of those grains go to feed cattle so that very few people can eat the way they do. Does that seem fair? Does that seem equitable? Does that seem to me like the yogic way that I wish to live my life? And the answer is no. So I make the change that I want to see. To quote Gandhi, I make the change with me, but I don't tell you how to do it. I offer suggestions if anyone's interested. I don't see any reason why, unless you're curious, why a heavy meat eater would want to come here to watch this discussion. I won't go on someone else's channel and say this is how you should eat. I have no interest in converting anyone other than by my example. So, ginger meant to hormones too. It's hard to eat raw though. I would eat it raw during races sometimes to calm the stomach, because a lot of times with those amount of miles in a race, throws things off. You get very nauseated, which is why a lot of people turn to smoking pot during an ultra, because it addresses quite a few things that an ultra runner is faced with. They lose their appetite, they get nauseated, and they're in a lot of pain. Marijuana will help alleviate pain. It increases your hunger, so you eat more at the aid station, and it decreases nausea. But you can't do it during races. So I'm not saying to do something illegal. Far from that. I'm just saying what I've heard from others. Reverend Terminator says, you got a good radio voice, Eric. Thank you. I appreciate that. Burford says you enjoy a few organic English eggs on toast, though. 99% ethical. I don't think I would enjoy it right off the bat because I've been eating this way for so long. But I would get used to it again. I am not against. I have some friends who still consider themselves vegan, who include eggs in the diet. Straight from the source, they go to a local farmer that they know. They're unfertilized eggs, so they're not. A vegan takes that hard stance. Nothing from an animal, including bees, so no honey. I don't think you got to take that hard stance. I think you got to do what works best for you. If you make some exceptions, that's fine. This is why I recommend a plant-based diet, because the more plants that you have on your plate, the less meat you're naturally going to want to eat. You fill up on the fruits, on the vegetables. It's the way people used to eat. It wasn't always, a farmer's plate wasn't always filled with meat. It's a large balance on there. Barefoot Burpee says here's our radio talk show host, Rev. And he says, I know you don't believe food cravings, but I think it's real. You know what? I'm not saying I don't believe in them. I think For some people, I think you're very in tune with your body. So you know what to listen to. But I think a lot of people just aren't in tune with their body. So they're not craving a particular food, they're craving a particular nutrient that you can get in other sources outside of meat if you want to. Um, but again, for you, you've been doing this for so long, um, and you spend a lot of time in nature, you work out in nature, you've spent years doing internal martial arts, so you know how to listen. So your intuition is sharp. You know what you're doing. Hey, Gainsborough is here. Gus, how are you? Got a full house. Um, Barefoot is giving warning to Gus. It's a diet chat. Um, Subs, ethics, yogic diet. Um, Barefoot says he was vegan for 4 years. It wasn't his easy choice to go back to eggs and honey. No, you know what though? You made it work for you. You didn't just go all the way back to what you were doing before. You made adjustments so that you continue eating ethically and at the same time honoring how you felt and what you felt you needed to do for your health. You threaded a very um, threaded treaded um, a very fine line, and you did it well and you did it successfully. To me, that's admirable. I appreciate as a vegan, as an ethical vegan, I appreciate what you did for your health as well as guarding your own ethics. Um, Barefoot says vegetarian for 30 years or so. And again, I think you're doing it right. Gus says, interesting. I get cravings. I notice it's true. It's usually a nutrient thing, even sugar. I know when I'm, let's see, feeding for a soda. I'm sugar low. Otherwise, I don't drink it at all. Yep. And you're a long time athlete. You know how to listen. You know how to listen to your body. Obviously, as you're showing right there. For me, I turn to fruit. As I described in my diet, it's just there's a ton of fruit in my diet. Funny, I've heard some talks on sodium. Uh, a lot of people saying, doctors saying sodium is bad when it's really not that bad for you. It's necessary, which I agree 100%. Sodium in and of itself isn't that bad for you. But when we think about what we eat, sodium is packed in every processed food to the point where even a quarter of a fast food hamburger has enough sodium to last you for a week. So it's not that using salt is bad, it's using salt on top of sodium packed foods that are ingested. Some of the best advice I ever got, reading Food Rules by, his name is escaping me. 3 things. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. 3 things. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. People think that's rather obvious. Eat food. Of course. What else am I going to eat? However, he makes some adjustments in that. When he says eat food, he means eat real food. And here are the things. If it comes from a box, it's not real food. If you can't pronounce the ingredients, it's not real food. If it has more than 5 ingredients, now that doesn't mean spices or extra vegetables or whatever. It means all the other stuff that's in there that you can't pronounce. If you can't pronounce it, it's not real food. If your grandmother wouldn't recognize it as food, it's not real food. So the second, not too much. All of us overeat. Most of us. Not all of us. Most of us. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. It's not enough to have a hamburger. You got to have a cheeseburger. It's not enough to have a cheeseburger. You have to have a bacon cheeseburger. It's not enough to have a bacon cheeseburger. You have to have a double bacon cheeseburger or a triple even. It's not enough to have pizza. You got to have pizza with extra cheese. And then you got to have a meat lovers pizza. We don't need to eat that way. We're not meant to eat that way. We were fasting animals, fasting species. We eat when we had food, but not to the point where we couldn't move, because rest and digest when you're a hunter is a dangerous place to be. You want to be able to take that jump into fight or flight as needed. Gus says he is listening. I'm driving. I can't text too much. Barefoot says his grandmother loved cakes too much. We might need to go back. He wrote this a few years ago. And he's in his 60s. Michael Pollan is the author. Great author, by the way. Omnivore's Dilemma. Great book. He might be close to 70. So, Barefoot, you might need to go back to great grandmother. Skip a generation. Reverend Terminator says, one thing I can say, Eric McCarty and Barefoot, you both show that what you do works. I appreciate hearing that as well. And I agree, not look-wise, for me, at least. I think for Barefoot, yes. But performance-wise, I was able to run an ultra marathon a day. Ultra marathon a month, a race, for almost 10 years. And in less than 10 years, I put together a string of 100 ultras, plus the training, plus I was lifting, I was doing kettlebells. So I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good for 58 and having a hard-earned, high-mileage body. Not to mention packing a lifetime of bad habits into a decade or two, 80s and 90s. Let's see. Barefoot says ultra is over 50 miles. An ultra is anything over a marathon. So it starts at a 50K, which is 31 something miles. And I would try to do at least a 50K every month to keep me in shape for doing the 50s and for giving a shot at 100. I have attempted, I think, 6 or 7 100-mile races, finished 2. I got over 80 miles in at least 10 or more 24-hour races. Rev says, I saw a Stephen King series. A guy traveled back in time to around 1960. Food tasted so good. It would be interesting with a time machine and taste for food made from real ingredients in the past. I don't remember the name of that series. Based upon a Stephen King book. He was trying to stop the assassination of JFK, I think. The funny thing, a food critic for the New York Times said at a certain point, no one actually remembers what ham tastes like any longer. We don't taste ham. What we taste is the additives, the sodium, the hormones, the chemicals, all of that has pumped in the meat, pumped into the animal. That's what we're tasting. No one knows what an actual ham sandwich tastes like any longer. It's probably been 60 years since someone had a ham sandwich, unless they live on a farm. So that's something to consider. Food is produced to be addictive nowadays, including meat. It's not enough, that you take an animal and you turn it into a food product. You have to then take that food product and pump it full of more chemicals, put more additives in, put more sugar, more salt, more oil, all kinds of stuff in, so that you will come back for more quickly. And if it damages your health, we got a whole pharmaceutical world, corporations ready to step in and say, hey, we'll fix you right back up so you can go back out and eat some more crap. It's a cycle. You're caught in a cycle. We're all caught in a cycle. One of the yogic principles is recognizing ignorance. And I don't mean that in a way of recognizing stupidity or anything like that. It means recognizing the things that we don't see, the things that we don't know, but they're existing. And it's that cycle of corporate greed from big agribusinesses. We don't get our food from those type of small farms any longer. These are businesses. And you don't think businesses stick together? I am not a conspiracy theorist, even a little bit. I don't follow them. I don't care about them. But we do know food comes from agribusinesses. We do know all we need to know about pharmaceutical companies, and that they don't have our best interests in hand. They are invested in keeping us sick. And so it goes in a cycle. Until, going back to the yogic principles, we just bring awareness to that ignorance. The only way you get rid of the only way you get rid of ignorance is through awareness, and it changes by itself. Barefoot Perpy says Philip K. Dick seemed to consider these questions. He did, definitely, as well as all kinds of other things. Gus says, I don't eat ham, but that's crazy. Yeah, it is. Again, for me, I think if you want to eat meat, go to a local farm, or hunt, or raise it yourself, or look for the best quality that you can get. Organic, chemical-free, pesticide-free, hormonal-free. It's gotten to the point we've pumped our animals with so many antibiotics, they cease to work for us. Do you think COVID would have been as bad if those antibiotics weren't pumped into so many animals that we become addicted to them? That we've done something to our own form of defense? I don't know. Barefoot says he hasn't had ham since the 1980s. Yeah, it's been a while for me as well. And you guys are worse off in the U.S. food-wise. Yes, we are. The quality is just crap in the U.S. because they don't care about us. They don't care about the consumer as long as they're consuming. They'll care about you when you stop consuming because the profits go down. Let's see. Norwegian even cleaner than the UK? I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. I think because the UK is too associated with America, we've been a bad influence on the United Kingdom. Reverend Terminator says our sheep walk in the mountains all summer and come home for winter. And that's how you do it. That's how it should be done. And if you do it that way, that means people naturally eat less meat because it's harder to raise. It takes more investment to raise. Maybe it'll be more expensive. But here's the thing. We are paying for cheap meat with our health. Is it worth it? I told you what the doctor said earlier in the conversation to my father when he was diagnosed with stage 3 kidney disease. It goes from 3 being the least, 2, and then 1. He never let it get past stage 3. He made some dietary changes. But the doctor said almost everyone in the Western world will have kidney damage because of the amount of protein that they take in. We just don't need that much. Even bodybuilders don't need that much. Beaufort says I want to be a Norwegian sheep. You know, you're not too far from Wales, are you? I always thought walking along the coast of Wales would be one of the most amazing experiences that you can have. And that's about as close to a sheep as I think you might want to be. Beaufort says Rev has eaten both. I haven't. I'll go with him. I went to Copenhagen, but only ate cafe foods. Beaufort says, but you get the protein too low, you get other problems. I agree. I think, though, what I always tell people, think in terms of calories. Don't worry about the micros so much. When you get the macros in, when you're getting enough high quality calories in, you're going to get you're getting enough protein. If you get in 3,000 calories plant-based food, you're going to get in probably 100 grams of protein. I don't know how much protein I have. At least probably 80 grams, 90 grams a day. But I go to the extreme because I spent a lifetime before this eating heavy meat, supplementing my diet with all kinds of, protein powders, protein bars, protein enemas, protein eye drops, protein ear drops, protein toothpaste. Everything had to be high protein because I had to get bigger. I had to get stronger. I had to be bigger than the next guy. So, health-wise, I might have been exaggerating on the protein toothbrush and ear drops and nasal spray. Maybe exaggerating just a little bit. Let's see. Reverend Terminator said it is the wheat, cheese, tomato sauce I enjoy in a pizza, chocolate, and pick and mix and crave. We pick our battles where we make exceptions. If it's minimal cheese on a pizza and you got the tomato sauce and it's, you're not pounding it with a bunch of sodium and all that other stuff, you're not doing too bad. Beaufort says he ate so much wheat and dairy as a student, I became intolerant. Yeah. It's easy for that stuff to happen, especially, as a student when you're eating on a budget. Ramen noodles here in the United States. Beaufort says he gets in around 250 grams protein. That's about all you need. Obviously, look at you. Look at what you're doing. A heavy strength-based program, as well as burpees and sprints, other stuff. Barefoot, whatever you're doing as well, dietary-wise, is definitely working. Every once in a while, I stumble upon an old video from you from over a year ago, and the change is astounding. And you don't notice it that much because you're very sensible in your approach. And it didn't happen suddenly or drastically, but just every day, a little slimmer, a little better shape. And then in a year's time, you see that older video and you're like, holy cow, what a huge difference. Amazing. So definitely salute to you. So, comment was basically, or today's talk was basically for Burpee Bandit, who had some questions about diet. Probably got more than he expected. He got to hear me rant on all kinds of stuff. And I'm generally not a ranter, but, hey, every once in a while, you got to get it out of your system. By the way, I did mention I have 1 cup of coffee a day. I have no alcohol in my diet. I don't smoke. A few years ago, I had reintroduced smoking marijuana back in my diet, back in my system. Did not agree with me, so I put it aside. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. If you like it, If you enjoy it, if it's not a problem, go ahead and do it. I had a problem with alcohol. I had a big problem with alcohol. I drank myself out of jobs, relationships, friendships, cars, um, all kinds of stuff. I ruined my life through alcohol. One day, through what I can only call a moment of grace, drunk, the police were involved. I had an epiphany. If I wanted to, I never had to take another drink again. And I never did. In that instant, I was reborn a non-drinker. I don't know why or how, but I was different. I went from a everyday drinker, an everyday heavy drinker, to someone who just didn't drink in an instant. Literally so. So, Barefoot says he barely touches burpees at the moment. You throw them in with your sprints. You do just enough to stay barefoot burpees instead of just barefoot. Barefoot ring guy doesn't have the same barefoot sprint. Well, barefoot sprinter. Hey, that's not too bad. You might want to put that one on the list. Barefoot sprinter, barefoot ring guy. It's too has it too much. Barefoot says you're lucky you got off the bottle. Definitely. I would be dead. You couldn't drink as much as I did, and I drank to get obliviated every night, and I was pretty good at it. And I was fun. So none of my friends wanted to say, hey, quit drinking. You're killing yourself. Because I was a fun guy to hang out with. I was fun when I was drunk until I wasn't. And you never know when that was going to happen. Gus says, powerful testimony. Thank you. Charitable. Barefoot says, charitable, Eric. Reverend Terminator says, that alcohol is something I don't crave. Not even caffeine. Even if I have a dose of 600 milligrams a day, I don't get cravings when I stop. It's just the sugar and wheat. Yeah, I've reduced down. I used to drink coffee through the day, 1 cup in the morning. Because I don't crave it, I enjoy it. I like that 1 cup. It's also a connection to my father. We would share a cup of coffee in the morning. Today, by the way, is the 2-year anniversary of my father's death. So I appreciate actually spending it talking to friends. It's a tough day. Barefoot says I wear shoes now too, which made Gus laugh. Barefoot says I drank heavy around 20-ish. It's hard once you're used to the culture to stop, and that's a big part of the culture in the UK. People drink at an early age. It's, acceptable. I think they might have less problems because of that. I could be wrong in that. I could be off. For me, I started drinking and something clicked. I did some drugs in the 80s, but I could easily stop doing drugs. Alcohol was a different matter when I started. I started as a social drinker, but I found every reason in the world to be sociable. I was sociable every single day. I was sociable every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, all through the week, all through the weekend. Even more sociable on Fridays and Saturdays. Gus says that he reheated his coffee in exchange for a pre-workout. I stopped that, and it was last of the sups. Except for the magnesium and the creatine. Oh, and the Triphalia, which is an Ayurvedic supplement. It's actually made out of fruit, and it's ancient. Good stuff. Barefoot says fake BB. Coffee is a good. Barefoot says he finds coffee a decent pre-workout. It is coffee. I think caffeine is. However, for some, coffee might not sit heavy. You might have to have it an hour or two before. I have mine at, by the time I'm done my yoga and my meditation, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. So my only cup of coffee is at 4 o'clock in the morning or so. Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm up every morning at just a little bit after 3 in the morning. Reverend says, yeah, Gainesboro, I used too much pre-workout just to train, but stopped. It did nothing, just made me tired all the time. Too much makes me jittery and it interferes with my sleep. So it was a good reason just to cut down on that one. I also reintroduced, I went a long time, I quit coffee, replaced it with green tea. Green tea is a valuable supplement too. And you get just enough coffee, just enough caffeine, keeps you from getting jittery. And there's a lot of valuable antioxidants in green tea. It's been shown to promote longevity. However, coffee has been shown to be, in moderate amount, shown for good brain health. It can actually prevent Alzheimer's. My mother died of complications from Alzheimer's. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, had an aunt that had Alzheimer's. Seems to run in the females, but you can't be too sure, so I figured, put some coffee in there. Barefoot or Reverend Terminator says he was addicted to nicotine, chewing tobacco, snuff. That was hard to quit, and I can still feel the cravings. I smoked for on again, off again in the 80s, and I smoked again in the early 90s before I finally quit for good. Weird that I justified my smoking habit with being an athlete. Hey, I work out, I run, I'm a powerlifter, I'm a bodybuilder, I'm a this, I'm a that. So I have a bad habit. Funny the rational things that we turn around in our minds, that when you finally see it, when you shed that layer of ignorance, you realize what an idiot I was. It's the same with drinking. I never missed a workout. Even going into, on squat day, we'd put the trash can next to the squat rack because we knew we were going to throw up. You can't go and do a hard set of squats, 20 rep squats with a hangover and not throw up. But we justified it. I'm not missing my workout. You can justify anything. We go through life justifying all of our bad habits, justifying our ignorance, justifying our beliefs that don't serve us, don't serve other people. But it's easy. It's easier to keep doing things that aren't good for us than to make those drastic changes, which is why I appreciate this whole community here. I appreciate Gus and the Sunday crew because they're talking about this stuff. They're talking about all this stuff. They're not willing to just keep justifying. They want to make those changes. Same with Barefoot, same with Reverend. Look at his changes over the past year that he's made. Yes, I did snuff in high school because all the football players did. And so I would we had the Skull Bandits, and you put it in your cheek under your gum. And I got hit once and swallowed it, got sick, and never ever wanted to do it again. Barefoot says nicotine was my worst from about 17 to 25, on and off. Minimal, but hard to stop, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's highly addictive. Barefoot says one a day, takes it over, plays with the mind. Yep. Yeah, we call it snuff here, or chewing tobacco. I think there's another word for it too. I know what I'm going to have to look that up. But I do know what you're saying. It's, it's basically tobacco that you just put up. Either you put it in your lower gum, some put it in the upper gum. Bad for the teeth, bad for the gums, bad for the mouth. Not to mention just the nicotine bad for the system itself. So, all right, again, I think that Barefoot or Burpee Bandit, I'm getting my BBs mixed up. that he probably got more than intended with coming up on a hour and a half discussion about diet, supplements, addiction, all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and end it for today. Yeah, vaping is really popular here too as well, barefoot. More so than smoking. People think it's better for you. Nicotine is nicotine. Reverend Terminator says, nice to see you all. Hey, thank you. I appreciate you spending time. I always appreciate it when you're in the bushes, and I know you're there, so thank you. But even more so when you get a chance to stop in and actually have a talk. That means a lot. Yeah, they're tax heavy. Barefoot says cigarettes have been taxed heavily here too, which makes it more all astounding that you pay so much for something that's going to kill you. Weird. So I was actually thought Mocha might stop in because I know she has lots to say about diet as well, and she is very much more outspoken than I am. She takes no prisoners and cares nothing about who she might offend in her talks about diet. So I'm going to end it here. I got some stuff to do, some studying on some of the classes that I'm doing. I'm actually going to be starting a new class today, Ayurvedic principles. Should be interesting. Well, that was a lot of um, 3 or 4 used to be 20. I thought you were saying you smoked 3 or 4 packs a day. That's a lot of smoking. Yeah, it's expensive. It's an expensive bad habit. It's strange that we don't mind paying that kind of money, and then we'll bitch and complain about spending how much extra to go to a movie or to buy a book or whatever. All right. Appreciate you guys being here. I will see you tomorrow for morning burpees, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks again. I appreciate you guys.